There are just 3 simple steps to follow. In the first step, we actually pick up stitches, and it's usually easier to do it with a needle that is 2 or 3 sizes smaller than the needles that you use to make the fabric. For example, this swatch is made on 10mm needles, that's US size 15, and I'm using an 8mm needle, that's US size 11, to pick up stitches. If you pick up stitches from a horizontal edge, that's cast on or bind off edge, then insert the needle from front to back into the stitch that is right underneath the edge at the very right hand side of the edge. Go front to back like this. If you pick up stitches from a vertical edge, that's the side edge of the fabric, then go front to back same way under the stitch that is the first one at the edge, the first one that is further from the edge, like this, on the first row of the project. To make the ridge that is built at the back of the fabric smaller, which is better, go not under the stitch, but under one strand. So basically we look at the strand that is at the very edge of the fabric, so like this, and we go front to back. And then fold the yarn, place that fold on the needle, and pull it through the stitch. And that would be our first pickup stitch. If you want to use a crochet hook, then go ahead. Crochet hook is nice, but then keep in mind that you're gonna transfer each stitch from a crochet hook to a needle, and that might take some time. So it's totally up to you. And then we go into the next spot that is usually 1 stitch away from the previous spot, 1 stitch to the left. If you pick up stitches from a horizontal edge, if we pick up stitches from a vertical edge, it's going to be 1 row to the left from the previous spot. So I go into under the next strand, and then again wrap the needle with the yarn. You can do it with the yarn in your right hand like this, or you can do it with the yarn in your left hand, doesn't make any difference at all, and pull this wrap through. And then keep going, picking up stitches one by one. And at this point, we are not counting stitches. We are not worried about how many stitches we're going to pick up. We are not even looking at the stitch pattern and using any formulas like we do when we pick up stitches from stockinette stitch. Usually we would pick up 3, then skip 1, then go ahead. No, we don't do any of that. What we do, we simply pick up stitches, and we care only about that the pickup edge looks nice. So the stitches are visually evenly spaced, and there are no holes underneath the stitches. And that's especially important if you pick up stitches from a curve, like a neckline, because sometimes we might need to pick up, let's say, 2 stitches from a certain section of the fabric, but there is a hole, and we are kind of limited because we only have 2 stitches. So we don't have this with this approach, no limits. If you feel that there is a hole forming and you need to pick up an extra stitch just to cover that hole, go ahead and pick it up. Like I said, we are not worried about the number of stitches that we pick up right now. All we are worried about, all we care about, is that the stitches are visually evenly spaced and that there are no holes underneath. So pick up as many stitches as you need to achieve that beautiful, neat look. That's all we do in the first step of this method. And I'm going to pick up my last stitch from the bind-off edge because I don't want to have a jog over here. I want the edge to go as a continuation of the bind-off edge. So here we go. We picked up stitches that are all evenly spaced, no holes, and right now I have no idea how many stitches there are. And that's what I'm going to worry about in the next step of this method. So that's when we actually count the stitches. So let's see how many stitches I have. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 20, 23 stitches. So what we do now is we take a piece of paper and we write that number down. So it's 23 stitches. 23. And now we look at the pattern and we find the number of stitches that we need, that is recommended in the pattern to make this band or whatever part of the project you plan to make. In my case, it's going to be 20 stitches. So let's say that my pattern tells me that I need to pick up 20 stitches over here. So I write that number right next to the first number. And then we subtract this number from this number. So 23 minus 20 is going to give me 3 stitches. So this is the number of stitches that I don't need in my project, that I don't need over here. So these are the additional stitches that I cast on because I was worried that I picked up, because I was worried about the look of the picked up edge, not about the number of stitches. And now I need to get rid of those stitches because I don't need them. And that's what we're going to do in the third step of this method. We're going to figure out how we can decrease these 3 stitches evenly so that it doesn't show and the edge is still nice and neat and no holes, but we have the number of stitches that is recommended by the pattern. If the edge that you pick up from is worked in the round, if the band is worked in the round and the edge looks like a circle, let's say like a neckline for example, then you need to divide the number of stitches recommended in the pattern by the number of the extra stitches, the additional stitches that you picked up. And in this case, that's going to give us something like 6.7. And that's not even number, obviously, and that means that we need to round it up or down. So if you end up with a number that is not a whole number, then round it up or down depending on the number. That's for cases when we work in the round. When we work back and forth, as is the case over here with my swatch, then we need to divide the number of stitches recommended in the pattern by the number of stitches that we need to get rid of plus 1 stitch. Not a stitch really, but 1 section that we need for symmetry. And that's the calculation that we do. And in this case, it's going to give me 20 by 4, it's going to give me 5 stitches. So this is the section. So this is the sections that I need to have, 5 stitches each, that's going to host 1 decrease. And that's what we're going to see in the project. So every 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's going to host a decrease. And because we're going to decrease that stitch, we're going to remove it from our calculations. So right here we have the last calculation to do, 5 minus 1, and that gives us 4. So this is the number of stitches that we're going to work before we make a decrease, 4 stitches. And we're going to make 3 decreases in my case. So let's get to actually knitting. I turn my work and I take the needle that is in the same size as the fabric, the needles used to make the fabric, or take a needle in the size that's recommended in the pattern for working this section of the project, the band or whatever it is, and then follow the calculations that we've just did, those simple few calculations, and we get rid of those extra stitches that we had to pick up to make sure the edge looks nice. So in my case, I'm going to purl 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I make a decrease. So I purl 2 stitches together. See, I go into 2 stitches and purl them together. And then I do the same thing. Purl 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then make a decrease. And then I'm going to do it one more time. As you get to the end of the row around, recount your stitches again, because we sometimes we need to round the numbers up or down. That means that probably you will need either to squeeze an extra decrease in the last section of the row around, or you would need to get rid of a decrease not make it. So count your stitches and make sure that you are heading into the right direction, and you have the number of stitches that and you will have the number of stitches that is recommended by the pattern. So for me, this is the last decrease, and I'm gonna work the last section, the one that we added for symmetry, those 5 stitches, and I am done. So let's see what we have right now on the needles. After all these decreases, we're gonna arrive at the number of stitches that's recommended in the pattern. Let's see whether it's the case. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 20. So I have 20 stitches over here. That's the number that I need to make the band as recommended in the pattern. And you probably noticed that I worked all stitches as purls. So basically I'm working in stockinette stitch. I purled stitches because I'm working back and forth. If you work in the round, you're gonna knit the stitches. Why do I do that? Why do I not worry about the stitch pattern of the band or the next part of the project that's going to be worked on these picked up stitches? For 2 reasons. First of all, stockinette stitch is the easiest one. It's the easiest stitch, and it is easy to focus only on making those decreases, on getting rid of those additional stitches that we needed to create a nice look at the right side of the fabric, but we don't need them anymore, so we're getting rid of them. And stockinette stitch is the easiest one to use. And the second reason is that stockinette stitch gives a perfect transition between the stitch pattern of the main fabric and the stitch pattern of the band. So if I start to work in the ribbing, for example, right now, then I will have this nice transition from the edge of the main fabric to the band. And stockinette stitch, 1 row or round of stockinette stitch, does exactly that. So that's why I'm using stockinette stitch, and that's why I recommend that you use it too, because it's easier and because it forms a nice, neater look, which is a win-win in this case. So what do we have now? We have the number of stitches that we need to make the band, and we have a perfectly neat picked up edge that is nice, evenly spaced, no holes, nothing like that. And we get all that without any need to fiddle with pins, safety pins, stitch markers to divide the edge into segments and counting stitches in each segment. None of that is needed. These 3 simple steps give us the perfect result without any hassle. If you find this tutorial helpful, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon to be notified every time I publish a new video. Happy knitting, my friend. I'll talk to you in the next tutorial.